Fighters' time passes, and their chins become worn after many fights. Some who were able to take bombs now go down even after light strikes, but hey, that's MMA. Because today, we bring you another list of fighters with weak chins. Consider that the video was made based on the number of knockouts in a fighter's career, and that the soft chins of today belong to once super durable fighters. Let's start with something light, and put the former light heavyweight title challenger at number 9. Dominick Reyes continued his undefeated amateur streak in professional competitions as well. He remained undefeated and untouched in the first 10 matches, and often did the work in the first rounds. Jared Cannonier, Vincent Preux, Volkan Ozdemir, and Chris Weidman are all big UFC names. But Dom would also be victorious against them. He finally got his shot at the title, which he lost in a razor-thin decision against the legendary Jon Jones. Everyone thought he would return better, but Reyes had a terrible fall there. He was knocked out in the next 3 matches against Jan Blachowicz, Jiri Prochazka, and Ryan Spann. Jan and Jiri indeed possess devastating knockout power, but the fact is that the Devastator has been shut down 3 times in a row, and after 3 brutal knockouts, it's unlikely that his chin will return the same. After the last fall, Dominick himself expressed his desire for a break because, we quote, "I've got to take care of my brain." Featherweight fighter Gray Maynard mostly won by decisions where out of 13 wins, he managed to win the night in the eyes of the judges 11 times. Gray didn't have devastating power in his hands or submission expertise, but he was always there to fight all night if needed. And he's best known for the legendary trilogy with Frankie Edgar. However, out of 7 losses on his resume, Maynard was shut down 5 times. The first to succeed in this was Frankie Edgar in the 3rd match. Who is not known for his knockout power, Nate Diaz also got the job done with a first-round knockout after many unanswered punches from Gray. The bad streak continued in the next fight against Ross Pearson, and the knockout loss that came in the last bout against Nick Lentz sent him straight into retirement. To his defense, it was a sick high kick. Most of the time, Gray took a ton of damage and a high volume of punches. His chin handled it well in every fight until it finally gave out. James Vick went undefeated in his first 4 fights, which led him straight to the UFC where he continued his streak. The first man to hurt him was Beneil Dariush, who followed with a finish by sending a flurry of punches. Vick returned like a warrior after the loss, and went on another solid streak until it was power puncher Justin Gaethje's turn. It didn't take long for the highlight to hunt down his opponent with his right hand and knock him unconscious. This match was obviously decisive for the durability of Vick's chin, because he can no longer return to winning ways. In the last 5 matches, he has 5 losses with 4 knockouts. Dan Hooker sent him to the ground with a not-so-heavy shot in the first round. And in the same year, Nico Price used his up kicks to get rid of James again in the first round. Vick left the UFC but did not find success even in the ex-MMA promotion, where the last man to test his chin was Andre Fialho. Marvin Eastman had quite a varied career with 18 wins and 15 losses, 7 of which Marvin got shut down. The first to knock him out was the roided-up Vitor Belfort, who ended many matches with knockouts, so we can turn a blind eye to that. Next up was Travis Lutter with an overhand right that sent Eastman spilling all over the UFC cage. We won't count the loss against Rampage Jackson due to his ability to knock people out, but Marvin Eastman couldn't keep his consciousness, even outside the UFC. Dennis Kong knocked his senses out, and he didn't even need a whole minute to do it. The Beastman just couldn't get his career straight, and in the match against Dwayne Lewis, the same thing happened again, a knockout in the first round. Marvin kissed Glover Teixeira's right hand 2 years later in an exchange of punches, and then it already seemed as if he had made a tradition of being knocked out in the first rounds. Getting banned from the UFC isn't the worst thing that could have happened to Rousimar Palhares. Nate Marquardt was the first man to show that the Brazilian didn't have much punch resistance when he stopped him in a leg lock attempt with ground and pound shots. Similarly, the work was done by Alan Belcher, and immediately after that by Hector Lombard, and all 3 knockouts were in the first round. Rousimar did not make a name for himself outside the UFC, where karma welcomed him with open arms. Out of the last 8 matches, he was out 6 times, and 5 were first-round finishes. Palhares proved to be a submission expert, but he definitely couldn't take punches. Emil Meek destroyed him in 45 seconds, and Mikhail Materla sent him to the Shadow Realm with an uppercut. Khizriev also made sure that the match did not go to the second round, and Kichagin, Magomedov, and Boyko did the same thing, and the Brazilian collected too many defeats at the end of his career. Stefan Struve was always inclined to end matches before the final bell, whether it was submission or knockout. However, he also had his downfalls that called his chin into question. Skyscraper was knocked out 9 times in 13 losses. Many will say it's not fair because he competed in the heavyweight division, but 9 knockouts is not a small number. We'll go over just a few of them, like the brutal first round knockout by Travis Brown. For someone as tall as Stefan, Mark Hunt showed that it is not difficult to reach his head. As his career came closer to an end, his chin started showing red flags more and more often, as we can see in the fight against Volkov. Before retiring, he suffered 2 more knockout defeats against Ben Rothwell and Tai Tuivasa, where he definitely proved that his head had reached the limit of tolerance for punishment. Although Jonathan Goulet finished 20 opponents out of 23 victories, 10 times he found himself on the other side, that is, with his back on the floor and mostly unconscious. Fortunately for him, several knockouts are not easy to find on the internet due to their antiquity, such as the taping to punches against Josh Koscheck and knockout against Marcus Davis. Good thing people already know how weak Goulet's chin is, so we don't need too much video evidence. However, not so many people get knocked out in a matter of seconds in their first few UFC fights, but Dwayne Ludwig made sure to close the bout in a record time of 6 seconds. Mike Schwick took the same recipe and finished Jonathan after 33 seconds. Finally, in his last match, Jonathan faced Chris Clements, who tried his best to mark his opponent's retirement with the 10th knockout loss of his career. Before losing to Rashad Evans in 2007, Sean Salmon had a promising career ahead. Things were going great until he suffered his first knockout loss, which was nothing short of brutal. Apparently, Evans destroyed most of Salmon's brain cells with a high kick, and that same year, Jorge Santiago finished the job with a flying knee in just 25 seconds. This turned out to be fatal for Sean's head, who, at the end of his career, had 12 defeats in a row and was a victim of many TKO losses. In none of the last matches did Salmon go to the second round. In the last 3 bouts, he suffered terrible knockouts from ground and pound, and in the third, he was forced to tap to punches and realized that his career was not going any better after 12 defeats. So, he finally made a smart decision to retire. In the 3 years of competition before his retirement, Salmon showed that he was no longer able to take punches. For a kickboxing giant like Alistair Overeem, it is incredible that he has been knocked out 15 times and 19 losses throughout his career. One would think that it is more logical that his defeats are due to submissions, but Alistair breaks all the laws of logic with his resume. However, we're talking about a man with over 60 MMA matches and 15 in kickboxing. And if we look at his scarred face, we can understand why his chin can't take big hits anymore. In his defense, we can say he fought the greatest power punchers in the world, but he couldn't resist being knocked out. The first time Alistair tasted an MMA knockout defeat was by Bobby Hoffman when he was still very young. But in the rest of his career, he suffered a lot more. Mauricio Rua managed to finish him off twice in his career, both times in the first round with ground and pound. In addition to many matches, we can single out 2 knockouts that certainly took a toll on his chin. The first is the legendary killer uppercut against Francis Ngannou, and it's a miracle that he's still alive, let alone mentally healthy. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is the second knockout that definitely shook Alistair's sanity. As the video shows, thus in his last match, he showed that his endurance had come to an end when Alexander Volkov managed to knock him down after calculated blows and send him to retirement. It's not easy to watch sports legends fall, but it happens sooner or later. We've come to an end, and we're grateful to you for staying. Make sure to hit that like button and turn on notifications for more of our content. You can share our video with your friends and write us your valued opinion in the comments. Remember to keep your guard up, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.